All right, so we're going to continue with our discussion on the principles of art. Um, Basically, the principles or the compositions are the different arrangements or compositions of the elements of design to create artistic and interesting, more visually powerful photographs. Basically, in other words, you're going to use these ideas, these concepts to come up with better photographs, or at least that's the hope. So the principles of art are emphasis, balance, unity, contrast, movement and rhythm, and pattern and repetition. Okay, so when we talk about emphasis or focal point, okay, emphasis in composition refers to developing points of interest to pull the viewer's eye to important parts of the body of work. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that when you are looking at your photographs, that your eye is drawn to one point. Okay, so in other words, for example, like this grouping of trees, the way that they've all been done, so your eye kind of follows all the way to the point of light at the end of it. Um, in this photograph, something more simple, just something, the bright green, um, sucker, lollipop, or whatever this is, ice cream, I think is what it is. Okay. Even something as simple as, okay, we look at this picture and we're like, dang, that is a big buffalo, whatever it is. In this one, it's that's the red tulip amongst all the yellows. In this one, it's that someone has changed a color picture into black and white and left one thing in color. Same thing with this one. We see the red strawberry. That's the emphasis item. When we talk about balance, balance is a sense of stability in the body of the work. Balance can be created by repeating the same shapes by creating a feeling of equal weight. Okay, so in other words, balance doesn't mean completely equal, but it does mean that one side balances the other no matter what that looks like. So when we talk about that, in other words, in this photograph, we have myself and some students. So even though there's like kind of this imaginary line down the middle, basically this side balances this side. When we look at this, one of the wildflowers here in Texas, we've got these, Indian paint brushes amongst all these blue bonnets. But it kind of creates this kind of sense of balance there. One of my favorite ones by a student, they were actually using the both perspective and balance in that there's this line right here between her and the lines leading up to her. So that creates this kind of imaginary um, bisecting line that creates that balance. Same thing on this one with the lake and the sky. It's so calm that it actually reflects, so it creates this magnificent sense of balance. In this one, this is one of the Smithsonian Castle. And basically there's kind of two different sets. We've got the lines bisecting the mainlands from the actual castle itself, and then also if we go straight up and down, they're vertical. Our left side balances with the right side. And then something as simple as someone took this picture of the seahorse, and even though he's right in the middle, we kind of basically balance the rest of the colors and the rest of the background that's going on with what's going on in the foreground. So that's just some examples of balance. When we talk about unity, unity is seen in a painting or a drawing when all the parts are equal to the whole. So in photography, all the parts are equal to the whole. So whether it's using some values and things like with these two giraffes, and the way that they did the balancing with the skies and the colors of the skies and the colors of the ground, which they actually kind of did opposite, where the ground is bright and the sky is dark. That helps with the unity. Something as simple as the child's hand in an adult's hand. Um, there's just something kind of very calming about that. When since again a sense of unity. Um, One of my favorite ones that I found. This one is not one of my photographs, but I found this one. Is these ones of all the kids jumping off the dock into the lake. And it's one of those things that it's not balanced, but it's definitely unified in that you can imagine them falling into the water. And then same thing again, some photographs again can be used in multiple settings like this one, which we used before, also shows basically a unity. In other words, the unifying principles. So that's unity. In contrast, we refer to the opposites and the difference in the work. You can achieve a variety by using different shapes, textures, colors, values in your work. This one I didn't have a whole lot of great photographs for, but I used the ones that I did have. My favorite one is this one, and it doesn't really do it justice on here, but his blue eyes really were very, they just contrasted with everything around him. Um, when it was printed. Uh, this one, the red rose and the pink, the pink wrappings kind of contrast with everything around him, showing that it just kind of stands out. Contrast just basically means something stands out. In this one, I don't like this picture as much because it didn't come out the way it used to be. The water when it was printed was very, very blue, and it really stood out against the oranges, because again, those are contrasting colors: orange and blue, purple and yellow, and green and red. Those are the contrast colors, but it didn't quite turn out the way I wanted to in this presentation. When we talk about pattern or repetition, that's an element that occurs over and over again in a composition, whether it's like a fence or steps or something like those. It can repeat the same element in a consistent pattern, whatever that works. It can repeat the element in a variation of the pattern. So again, some of the examples, I don't know why it's making noise. Some of the examples that I have, this one is a real picture from my family. My grandfather took this picture. So one of those two kids is his son and my grandmother. And basically they're at like an old coliseum with lots of steps. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the repeating pattern. But it can be done with, even chain link fences, wooden fences. We used to use it a lot when we used the stadium. All of those things are examples of repetition. When we talk about movement, movement adds excitement to your work by showing action and directing the viewer's eye throughout the picture plane. Rhythm is the type of movement in a drawing and painting. It is seen in repeating shapes and colors, alternating lights and darks, and also a sense of rhythm. Movement is one of the hardest ones, so most people think of it like an action shot. So um, that's not necessarily the only way to show movement, but it's one of the ones that people, have used in the past to show movement. But basically, movement is anything that can move you. That's really what it is. It's not necessarily action, but most of what we have to work with is action. And again, that repeating thing, again, coming back to the track repeats, the seats repeat, the whole stadium repeats. So whatever you want to use to show movement. Um, so basically, the elements and principles are used in making photographs, not just taking photographs. You have to know and understand the elements and principles of art to see them all around you and capture them in your photos. It's one of those things that, as a photographer, um, you really start to see the photographs around you even when you don't have your camera. I do it all the time, and there's days that I really wish I had my camera with me. And I guess with the advent of the phone camera, that's one of the things that it does allow us to do. Oh, I want to take a picture of that, and so we do. Um, Thank you for listening, and you're going to use all of this in your next project.